one and only Mihai Lehene.
I almost got fired. Twice. Third time I wasn't so lucky. On February 6th, 2020, 15 people in my senior team at Alston Trading, we got pulled into the CEO's office, sat down around the big table, and deliver the big news. We were to go to our desks, pick up everything, put it in boxes, and walk out in 30 minutes. As we walked into the bar downstairs, series at the CMA, we were in shock. Our team had delivered tens of millions of dollars to the company in the previous year and almost $1 billion in the previous decade. And yet here we were, thinking about what we can do in the next days, in the next months, how we can quickly turn around to get back into the industry. You see, as a senior trader and strategist at Alston Trading, I never cared about networking. I never cared about building bridges and connecting out because I never needed it. In fact, Romanians, we don't care about networking. We think something sleazy, kind of like putting your hand into your pocket, only to figuring out that somebody else blew their nose into it. It's got this icky feeling. But networking isn't about small talk and trying to curry favors with others. Networking is about playing the long game. Networking is about creating meaningful, deep relations and connections with people. Yes, networking done wrong might feel a little dirty, but networking done right is the cleanest and one of the most potent tools you might have for success in life and in business. I'm not going to waste your time here today. My presentation is structured in 3 parts. I'd like to offer a few examples that highlight the importance of personal connections. I'm going to talk briefly about how you can build your own powerful network around you, and then how we can leverage these connections for our own success and for our community's success. Now, I have to admit, I didn't know much about networking. I never actually cared or considered anything about it. Until one day, I was laid off. And then I started considering changing my careers. And I started connecting with people. So I got passionate about it. I started watching YouTubes. And I even subscribed to something called the Networking Institute. And for the next year or so, I still didn't understand anything. Until one day, I was talking to one of my mentors, friends, and super connectors around the world named George Roth. And as I was talking to him and I was telling him about the latest thing that I was interested in, he stopped me and he said, "Oh, I know this person. He was doing this all the time. I know this person that might be able to help you. I'm going to write an email right after I finish and I'm going to connect the two of you." And then I moved on to the next topic and he came to me and he said, "You know what? I have this other person and they are an expert in what you're trying to do. And I'd like to connect you with them." And as I hung up the phone, I thought, oh my God, I'm in love with this person. And oh my God, what is he doing? Sharing all of these connections, all of this wealth with me. What does he even want? And then I was, oh my God, I want to be just like him. You see, every one of us, we're business people. We bring our own resources. We bring our own wealth of knowledge to the table. We bring our own success and experience, our knowledge and our skills, our profession. We run our businesses on a day-to-day life. And there's a certain cachet to being a lone wolf that I know some of you may know something about. But your network acts as a multiplier to everything that you can do on your own. And as we walk back to our faithful morning at Sirius Cafe, I haven't even had time to take my first beer and take the first sip from it, that I got a phone call. And that was from Matt Stressengost, COO of Jump Trading, one of the most successful trading firms in the world. And he said, Mihai, I know there's a bunch of moves at Alston. Don't worry about it. Just call me whenever you're ready. And 6 months later, I was working at Jump Trading, and I never had even sent out one resume. But I wasn't as lucky as I came to the United States in 2002. August 1st, I arrived, and I had 3 friends in Chicago, and they were all working in the cab industry. They were all taxi drivers. And then I had my uncle, Livio. And Livio had recently been laid off. He was in the construction industry. And 45 days into me starting school, my tuition was $25,000 a year. My first tuition bill was $8,000, and the clock was ticking. I was overdue by 2 weeks. In the first 45 days, I'd taken 30 interviews. Every job at the university that could have applied to me, I went and I applied to it. And I was always just waiting and waiting and waiting for an answer. And it was down to that one last day. One last job interview. I walked out of the house, and Livio looked at me and he said, let me drive you there. And he took me in front of the building, he dropped me off. He stayed right there. It was a sunny day, and I walked up into the building, took my interview, came right back down, and he said, how'd it go? And I said, it was awesome. I think I'm going to nail this one. And he reached out into his back pocket. He took out a business card, and he put it in my hand. And he said, I think you should call this guy. And I said, what happened? Where'd you got this from? And he said, well, you were going upstairs to take your interview. I was sitting right here, and I saw a truck pull over. And I saw this guy starting to unload a bunch of computers from this truck. And I went up to him and I said, can I help you? So I helped him unload the computers, take him into the basement, and take him right back. And as he was leaving, I said, I'm actually waiting for my nephew. He's upstairs, he's taking an interview, but he's actually in need of a job. He's a computer geek from Romania. He's really good at what he's doing. And he gave me this business card, and he said, have him call me. I might be able to find him a job. And that was my first teaching assistantship at UIC, and the way I avoided being sent home within the next few weeks. But I was much luckier next year, because although I had no money in my pocket, and although I had no money to fly back home, I had no money to pay my rent, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Because I had 10 friends, and every one of them was driving a cab. And many of them were here tonight, or today, I should say. So I was already counting the money in my head. It was 2.5 months times $4,000 a month. That's $10,000. That was a fortune. So I went to take my English exam, and I sat down at the city hall to take my cab driver's exam, and I knew I spoke better English than anybody around me. And I sat down, I took my English test, I turned in my paper, and I waited, relaxed, for the results to come. And when the results came, I fell off my seat, because there's a big reject sign on top of it. I still remember taking the piece of paper, taking it to the front desk, and there's a little window, and my hands were shaking. And I'm like, what happened? And the lady pointed out, and she said, there's 4 checks on this piece of paper. It says citizen, resident, J1 student, and other. And she said, you check J1 student, we don't offer jobs for J1 students. But I was fortunate, because a year prior, somebody had called me from Cluj. Random call. He said, listen, I have a friend who's coming to Chicago. His name is Romulus, he's in tech. He wants to get a job in the United States. Could he crash at your place for a few days? He ended up spending almost 3 months on my couch, sleeping with my dog. He became my mentor. But he got a job at Bank of America. And as I called him to tell him about what was going on, he said, oh, do you think I could take a resume and pass it on? I think they're still taking applications for summer internships. And I got my summer internship, and Bank of America extended me a full-time offer when I was done, and then they did my green card. You see, my 3 stories are about the power of personal connection. Because I'd applied and I tried, but every one of these was mediated by another person and by knowing the person that was behind it. But as it turns out, there's a great study done in the 1970s at Stanford University. 84% is the average of meaningful lifetime interactions and encounters. That is meeting your wife, getting your business partner, making your next big investment, finding your daughter an internship. All of these connections, they're mostly and most often mediated by your weak connections. That is up to 500 people that are not your best friends, not your wife, and not your family. So I'd like to talk next about how you can build a strong network. I didn't know much about this. I learned everything by myself. So you should take this with a grain of salt. But the way I understand this today, the way I understood it in the beginning, is walking into a room, taking your business card, talking to a number of people, telling them about your business, and connecting with as many people as possible. One thing that I learned in the past 2 to 3 years, though, is networking, though, isn't about socializing. Networking is not about your business. Networking isn't even about you. You see, networking is a structured, strategic approach to building your network. And you do that by listening. You do that by attempting to identify how you can provide value to the people that you connect with. You do that by helping out. You do it like planting seeds for the long term. And for that, I had to learn how to shift my mindset. And I want to give an example from a recent networking meeting that took place here in Chicago. I went and I met a lot of people, and there was one person there, and I asked them what they did. And they said, we provide artificial intelligence services for CPA firms, and we make them 4 or 5 times faster and their job a lot easier. And I was already counting in my head, and I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 firms. I can give you 5 connections. And you're going to be able to add a lot of value to them. And my friends are going to be happy, and you just got 5 clients. And the next day I went to the consulate. And at the consulate, I got invited by Mr. Consul General, and we had a wonderful meeting. And there was one young lady there. Her name was Bianca. And she was there with her brother and with her father. And they bring Romanian wines to the United States. And as I learned about what they do, I went to her and I said, you have to meet my friend Irina. She is in the importing business. She can help you. She stopped me right there. She said, we already know Irina. She's wonderful. And I kept thinking, and I said, you know what? You have to meet Dana Bush and Cristian Soare. They're my friends. They do wine distribution in the United States. And I think you could learn a lot from their experience. But there's another piece of this story. I got to tell you another component, though. As I walked out of that meeting at the consulate, I went down into the lobby, and I met my friend Adriana. And Adriana was telling me that her husband, Dan, is in the cybersecurity industry, and he really wants to come to this event because he wanted to meet Alex, and they're both in the cybersecurity industry. And I heard cybersecurity, and I said, oh, does he know Cosmin Toma? He's my friend, he's in cybersecurity, he needs a job. Maybe you might be able to help him. And she started laughing, and she said, they're best friends. But then she stopped, and she said something twice. She said, you know what? But I love that you do this. So I want you to think about where that positions me in her universe and what that says about me to her. She wasn't even one of the people that I was trying to help. But going back to the next step in building your powerful connection, or your strong network, there's one little caveat and there's one little component that I think you really want to focus on. And that is master the follow-up. Because you see, I told you that I met that guy with 4 or 5 with the CPA firms with the AI program. And I told him that I was going to connect him with 4 or 5 firms, didn't I? But I didn't follow up the next day. On the other hand, I did follow up with Bianca. And the next day I went and I took my 2 phone numbers from Cristian Soare and from Dan Albush. And I texted the 2 numbers to her, and I said, listen, these are the 2 numbers. Tell them that I gave them to you. And tell them, and I hope that you really have a wonderful connection and relation. Now, I did prepare 8 steps, and I had a lot. This presentation was for 40 minutes. I'm sorry. I had a lot of examples for you, and I would love to share them over the break. I'd like to move on to my next topic, which is how do you leverage this network for success once you form a strong connection or a strong network? And then how do we, as a community, leverage these networks for success? Because you see, it's one thing for you to create your own network and to leverage it for your own success. But I live within this community. And if we want to take this network and leverage it for massive success, then we have to do this at scale. And I learned this as I was doing this presentation. I remembered a 2017 event. It was forever inscribed in my memory. As I walked into the Hyatt downtown, this was the JUF, Jewish United Fund, a 120-year-old tradition organization. It was the Real Estate and Attorneys Gala. 3,000 people. Malcolm Gladwell was their keynote speaker. And you could feel the raw power in that room. Billions of dollars sitting at every table. And you can't achieve that unless you do that as a community. And you can't achieve that unless you help each other. I do have one last caveat though. Because if you understand networks and social networks, one thing you will understand is that personal and business and success traits are not evenly distributed within these networks. Now, I happen to be living in probably one of the most successful groups of people that I know. We're happy, we're content, we're professionally realized, successful, and we all care about each other and we work with each other. But that's not necessarily true for everybody. And all of the traits that you can think of a person, life duration, health, happiness, being poor, being overweight, they transmit within this network. In fact, if you're overweight, your friend has 56% chances higher that they're going to be overweight. But your friend's friends is also 30% chances higher that he's going to be overweight as well. And his friend is also 12% more likely to be overweight. But if you're overweight, you might as well be poor. And what we realize is that in this network, and if you look in this picture, this is an actual social network. If you look at this picture, look at the blue dots. Lonely people, sad people, people that are not connected. This is always towards the fringes. Success, happiness, health, life duration, they all go towards the center. Now, I'd like to hang up with 50 seconds left. And I want to take you and tell you that this is my journey, and this is the Faithful Morning at Sirius Cafe with my dear friends and with my friend Radu here. But I want to leave you with one conclusion and the challenge. And my challenge here is to introduce yourself to one person here today, to learn as much as you can about them, and to try to forge a meaningful connection. My second challenge is to attend or organize an event, a business event, within the next month. And my third challenge is to find one entrepreneur and to help them out, whatever way you can, without expecting anything in return. Thank you.
Man, thank you so much, man. You're so good at this. Now you should have considered that maybe some of us do not speak English that well, so maybe now for the next 20 minutes we should do a Romanian translation or something.